out of Egypt. My name is Daniel Vallis, and welcome to our channel. Thank you so much for your prayers, for strength and wisdom. The Lord is working, and I can tell it is because of your prayers. We are in a time of spiritual warfare. The hour is late, the hour is dark, the enemy knows it too as well, and the enemy is very busy in the spiritual realm now as well. There is a spiritual battle going on, and we especially need the armor of God on at this time and giving vigilance to it. And part of the armor of God is praying for one another. As soldiers of Christ, we support and we cover each other and we provide backup help for each other. We are here for each other. And sometimes we may feel that maybe we're not on the battlefront ourselves, but we can be part of the support team that helps others and enables others and prays for one another. And so this is what we're called to do, especially as we see the day approaching. We are to provoke one another into love and to good works, and we are to encourage each other and help lift each other up. And it is a great blessing and joy to see in the comments how you have prayed for each other and have encouraged each other. And definitely keep it up. Definitely continue asking for prayer. We all need prayer. This isn't some big secret. So it doesn't have to be anything big. Just say, prayer is needed for such and such, whatnot, and we will pray for you. Whether it's just me or others, hey, that's prayer. I'll take all the prayers that we can get, and we need all the help we can get at this time. So if you need strength, if you need prayers, let us know. We will pray for you. And this is what we should be doing, and so much more as we see the day approaching. I finally got able to go out and take some pictures. We had some rain there for a while, but it's so beautiful and relaxing just to go out and look at creation and be reminded of everything that we've been studying and learning intellectually on the computer and by watching these videos. But it does us so much good just to go outside and look at the reality of it and say, wow, this is really happening. This celestial clock really is turning every single day. These stories that we've learned are being declared in the heavens. It really is going on. And it does change your perspective when you go outside and look at the stars, and especially if you go out over several days and you just get a sense of how the stars are moving during the night. You really get the impression that we really do live within a gigantic celestial clock. And it does us good to pay attention to what time it is, the celestial time, and then also what that signs in the heavens are telling us about the prophetic time. There is so much we can be reminded of and have a reality check of how the heavens declare every single day the glory of God. And right here is a picture of Venus shortly after sunset, and if you've been looking at it over the past few evenings, you'll notice it's been getting closer and closer to the horizon at sunset because it's getting ready to go off the scene as the evening star and transition to a morning star. But it's still shining pretty bright here at the sunset. And I was able to go out last night, and it was very cold last night too, so I didn't do a field report last night. I did think about it, but it was too cold, and I could smell the smoke from my fireplace. That was kind of calling me to come back inside, so. But I did take pictures, so we'll talk about them and show you it right now, and it is incredible to see. And I went out at 2 o'clock in the morning because I'm still getting used to this dumb time change and everything. But so I was wide awake and really got to enjoy the evening. It's nice and crystal clear too, and very quiet at that time of the morning. But I got to see the moon and Jupiter and Spica and Virgo and so many other things. And even just after about 10 o'clock at night, you'll see Jupiter. So definitely go out in the evening and later in the night and try to look for some of these things, because it is a great reminder of what we've been studying and the reality of it too. And so the moon was very close by Jupiter last night too, and I still have not quite mastered getting photos with the moon and everything. So it's blowing everything out, but even with the moon so close and so bright, you could still see so many stars. And this is what you would see with your naked eye too. You don't have to have special equipment to see these signs. That's what makes it so amazing, is anybody can go out and look at it. And we could see right here is Jupiter, and then right below it is Spica, and these show up real easy, even with a bright moon right nearby it. And you can get a sense of, okay, if that's the hand of Virgo, and that's her holding the wheat sheaf right there, then that gives you an idea to look for the rest of her body, the main torsos. You'll generally see 4 stars nearby, and her sides a little indented. That's sometimes a little fainter, but you get an idea of, okay, there's her body right there. Then her arm is reaching up, and there's Zavi Java. And so then her legs are down here, and they're kind of blown out by all the light right there, so you can't see them too well. But you get an idea of where Virgo is, and Jupiter's in her womb right now. So again, if you find Jupiter and Spica, and they'll definitely stand out, they're really bright, that gives you an idea of start looking for the body around her. And then start looking for the arms spread out and the other arm spread out. And the one arm is going to be reaching out toward Leo the lion. So that really makes it easy. Once you find that, just start looking along there, and up there somewhere you'll find Leo. And I was able to get a nice picture of both Virgo and Leo at 2 o'clock in the morning. They were right overhead, both of them, and it's so incredible to see. And I really wish I had a camera that would zoom way out, or a lens that would really give a really wide view, because it does not do justice to the scene in the heavens when you could see just everything with your eye, the moon and Virgo and Leo all in one shot, and then the stars around it and Corvus right below it. Everything else that we've been looking at, it is a huge declaration of the story that we've been studying, and becomes so real when you can see it all at once, especially. But here you can see there's Jupiter, still nice and bright, and because it's getting close to opposition, which is when it's going to be shining brightest, it's going to be getting brighter than even that. So, and there's Spica right below it, and so we start looking for the body. There's her side indented. Okay, that gives us an idea of the body. And then she's reaching out. There's Java, and up here's her other arm going up that way. And then over here you can see Leo, and it's recognizable usually by, if you could find the sickle shape, that'll tell you where the head is at. And then usually you'll see this little triangle pretty easily. That'll tell you where the tail is, then a bola. And then once you find the other part of the triangle, you can follow that down, and that's usually the hind leg. And you could see this with your plain naked eye. You don't need telescopes or binoculars to see all this. These are signs that anybody can see if you have good weather and you have decent eyesight. And then down here is Regulus, the heart of the lion. Incredible. And just here's filling in the lines to give you an idea of it. The lion and Virgo. It's incredible because once you find the very brightest ones, then you can start looking around them, recognizing the shape, and then usually that will lead you toward the others, and you'll find other recognizable shapes. And they're pretty bright, but you'll start recognizing the sickle shape and the triangle shape. You'll start recognizing them the more you go out and look at them, and I highly suggest that you do. Because we've seen so many celestial signs. Remember back from June 30th, 2015, which feels like a long time ago, but it's a year, 8 months, and 18 days, which is still within the time frame of the wise men's journey, and we're going to be looking at that more today. But we've seen some incredible signs along the way, and a lot that have happened right here in these two constellations, Virgo and Leo. And so when I do go outside and look at the constellations, particularly Leo and Virgo, I'm reminded about a lot of the things that the Lord has already shown us on our wise men's journey, and particularly where we left off with Station 1. There's so many things that we've been shown actively and declared to us. And so the more that we go out and look at this same spot, we are reminded of what the Lord has already shown us, and that can bolster our strength as we go forward. And just a reminder, we do have printable download sheets of what the wise men saw, the celestial events that they saw, and then also what we have seen over the past year and 8 months, and how they're almost identical, very similar. Very unique, very rare events in both cases. And so this is what has definitely drawn our attention to this time, as we are being shown something unique. We are on a learning journey, learning so much. And again, when we go out and look at it, we can be reminded of that the Lord has shown us things. He's taken us on a path, showing us a tapestry of redemption. We've learned so much about characters in the Bible, stories in the Bible. We've learned about the heavens. We've learned about our Creator. We've learned so many things on the journey that He has brought us. And He has given wisdom and understanding for it all. He is the one who has brought us so far. And so when we have doubts or worries about the future, we can always go out and look up and be reminded that our Shepherd has brought us on this path, and He has shown us so many things. We will leave the future up to Him and trust that He has more things to show us. And He wants us to look up. And He wants us to be reminded constantly that our redemption draweth nigh. And so the more that we do look up, the more we are reminded of that. And in our Shiloh booklet, we've been trying to document amazing things that we've learned so much about the tribes in Judah, the Shiloh prophecy. All these are in the Shiloh booklet. Definitely download that. We have some incredible resources. The SHILOH booklet, the most up-to-date information is in the back, in the appendix section, because we have not had a chance yet to upgrade it to a 3rd edition to put things in order. So if you are new to a lot of this, definitely download the SHILOH booklet, but keep in mind there's a lot of great information, especially in the back, in the appendix section, but definitely download that resource. In Job 38:32, God is talking with Job, and he asks him some very important questions. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? God is asking Job some important questions about the heavens, and God is naming specific constellations that even Job knew back at the time of Abraham, because they were commonly known for thousands of years. Talking about Pleiades, the group of stars there, that cluster, the constellation of Orion, and the Mazzaroth, that is the collection of the 12 major constellations around the ecliptic. And so God is asking Job, can you affect the heavens? Are you the one who keeps Pleiades together? Are you the one who keeps the bands of Orion together? Can you bring forth Mazzaroth, the ecliptic constellations in their season, in their cycle, how they start every year again? Can you bring them forth? Who is the one who does that, Job? Canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? That's another constellation. Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Job, the heavens work in a clockwork motion, in clockwork manner, with clockwork precision. They have their ordinances and laws that they follow. Predictable. Cycles. But Job, are you the one who set that up? No. God is. Our Creator is. And we've talked a lot about Pleiades and Orion and how God regularly connects these two together, Pleiades and Orion. But we've also talked about the ecliptic, and we've also talked about the Alpha and Omega, and that historically there's been a recognized division between the lion and the woman, where it starts over again in its cycle. And here, God is basically asking Job, can you bring forth the Mazzaroth, the collection of constellations along the ecliptic? Can you start them over in their cycle? Can you start their cycle? Can you make it move at all? It does have a cycle. It does start over. It does have a season when it starts over. And even God alludes to that here. And very interestingly, his next question is tied to that. Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Arcturus is another constellation, but it's related to when the Mazzaroth comes forth in his season, when the Mazzaroth cycle starts over again. In Job 9:9, God is also talking to Job, which maketh Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades in the chambers of the south. When God mentions specific constellations by name, it should do us good to research them out and look at them of why is he naming these particular ones. And of course that also tells us that the ancients, even back at Job and Abraham, they were very well familiar with these names that God was quoting about the constellations. They knew the figures. They knew what the heavens were declaring back then. And unfortunately, they probably had a much clearer idea than we do today. We're having to do a lot of learning and catching up. But Scripture gives us these hints and these cue cards so we can do research. What did they know about Arcturus back then? What did they know about Orion back then and Pleiades? And how are these pictures emphasized? And why is God bringing attention to these? It's because he wants us to pay attention to these. But notice again how he emphasizes Arcturus, and even Arcturus with the start of the Mazzaroth. When you go outside and you look up into the sky, and at the same time as you'll see Jupiter and Spica, by the way, that's Jupiter right there and Spica right below it, and that's the moon over there. We know that Spica is part of Virgo, and so we can figure out where Virgo is, the body right there, her arm reaching up, and that's reaching up toward the lion. So here's the lion, there's the sickle, it means the head's right there, here's the triangle at the tail. So the body of the lion, here's his front paw. And so here's the lion, here's Virgo right here. Now Arcturus is very nearby. It's this bright star right up here. And so if you figure out where Virgo is, she's kind of reaching up toward it. But if you look at Leo and just kind of follow the body back right above Virgo, they both kind of triangulate pointing toward Arcturus. You can see Arcturus is up there. Virgo with the body here and her arm, the main recognizable part of Leo, and then you can usually see the hind legs too. But his body will point you toward Arcturus, and she'll be kind of reaching up toward there And so when you find these, you can usually find Arcturus because it's very bright too, and it stands out. It was well known in ancient history. So we have Arcturus, Jupiter, and Spica, very easily recognizable at this time of year. And in fact, when I went out last night and was taking pictures, it was nearby, and I didn't even really pay attention to it at the time. But again, here's Virgo, and the arm reaching up toward the line up there. Here's our other arm. And by the way, this little box thing down here under Virgo, that's Corvus the crow. But here's Virgo, and so if we follow up her body, Arcturus should be up there somewhere, so it's just outside of this shot. But I found another shot that had it, Arcturus, right up there. So you could get an idea of how bright it is. That's how bright it is compared to Jupiter and Spica. It's just about as bright as Spica. So you can find them. Again, here's the body, her arm reaching up. So follow her body all the way up there. And she's about 3 body widths away. So that gives you an idea of where you should be looking at. And then here's the triangle from Leo and its body over here pointing toward that. But this is important because these two constellations, the woman and the lion, we've talked about how they mark the separation along the ecliptic. When it starts its season and its cycle over again, Leo is the omega portion. It's the end of the cycle, where the woman represents the start of the cycle, the alpha portion. So the division between where these two meet is the division between omega and alpha, or the alpha and omega. But it goes that way, so it'll end at the omega portion and start over again at the alpha portion. That's how the sun moves too as well. But Arcturus is part of the start of the cycle starting over again because it is a subset of Virgo, of that constellation along the ecliptic, which goes along here from Spica. If you drew a line from Spica to Regulus, that's where the ecliptic is. But Arcturus is a subset of Virgo. So when Arcturus is being brought forth in its season, that's also another reference to the Mazzaroth starting over again at that point, this first segment, the alpha portion. The Mazzaroth is brought forth in its season at the alpha portion, right where Arcturus is, that slice of the sky along the ecliptic, which maketh Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades, and the chambers of the south. When the Bible gives us all these hints, it's because it wants us to investigate it. And this is what we've been learning on our learning journey, learning about Orion and Pleiades and the chambers of the south, and how these give us an incredible picture and understanding of these signs that are in the heavens. And to understand the signs in the heavens, we have to have an understanding of the heavens, and this has been part of our learning journey. We've been learning so much, and the Lord has been giving incredible wisdom. And right now we find ourselves in the night watches, which is when he told his servants to be looking for him and expecting him. And in many different passages and many different books of the Bible, this is the repeated emphasis of the action he wants from us to be actively watching for him with our heart and life, not just with our eyeballs or with our brain, but with our life and with our heart, expecting our Lord and living as though he's about to return. But then also alluding directly toward a time of night and toward specific time spans when we should expect him and when we should be looking out for him. And when we need to be making sure that we are awake to what is going on, prophetically and celestially, and what time it is, making sure we are not going back to sleep. And when we look on the timeline, there's so much coming together, and we've learned so much, and we are also reminded that the enemy knows what time it is too. The wise men looked for the king, for the Messiah, but Herod was also looking for him. And so we have to keep this in mind. The enemy is taking these signs that we've seen, they're taking them seriously. They know what time it is. They know the celestial events going on. Herod took the celestial signs seriously, and so does the enemy today. They have different reasons, just like Herod did, but they still take them seriously. And they are looking at this time frame very, very intently. And as we've covered before, they've been building up in their messaging to look toward this time also, and up toward the triumphal entry time. They know this time is very important. They know the constellations. They know the celestial events that are going on in the heavens right now. We got to always keep this in mind. They're not ignorant. They know what's going on in the heavens. They are watching this celestial clock. They are even alluding toward their pictures of it. They know what's going on in heavens right now. They have a distorted view of it, but they are fully aware of what's going on in the heavens and what prophetic time it is. And they also know the importance of Jupiter at opposition. And they signaled this a while ago on a specific date tied to Jupiter at opposition too. And keep this in mind, the enemy is watching and putting focus on Jupiter at opposition and the timing of that, particularly with the triumphal entry. They are watching Jupiter at opposition. They've been building a lot of timing with the gates toward the triumphal entry date. This is the time frame that they're looking for. They're not building their messaging toward the Revelation 12 sign. Again, let me repeat that. Their messaging is not building toward the Revelation 12 sign or that date, September 23rd. They're not looking toward that date. They're building the messaging toward Jupiter at opposition because they know that is celestially very important in the prophetic scheme of things. They know other events are going to happen before the Revelation 12 sign. That's why they're not looking toward that. They're looking toward in the very, very near future. They're getting their disciples ready. They're looking, and we saw this even a year ago, of them knowing exactly that Jupiter opposition is extremely important because it does mark the transition between the Omega and the Alpha. It does signal the strength of the covenant. And they're awaiting their son of perdition to come onto the scene to make a new covenant, a false covenant, but they know this celestial sign is important, and that's what they're looking forward to. They're not looking forward to the Revelation 12 sign because Satan knows his time is short when they get to that. They're looking toward other celestial signs that are in the very near future. This is what they've been building up toward over the past year and even over the past year. Getting their disciples expecting a triumphal entry in the celestial sign that's going on right now. And so when we just zoom in and let's just ignore all the enemy stuff at the moment, because we know the enemy's looking, we know Herod is looking, and they're looking at the same time frame that we are too. Herod is looking just like the wise men were looking. We've been on a learning journey for 1 year, 8 months, and 18 days. Still under 2 years, but we can tell we are quickly running out of time. And we are in the 4th watch right now. Running out of time, we can have less than 2 weeks before the end of the 4th watch. But this is also one of the most important times that Christ told his servants to be expecting. And even gives pictures of him coming to his servants in the 4th, his disciples on the sea. So there's multiple pictures and warnings and instructions that this is a time we are to watch. And we also see the spring equinox with the sun being in line with the Sphinx in just a few days too as well. And then the 4th watch will end at the beginning of the new year on March 29th. And then Jupiter opposition will be on April 7th. So we have several significant markers that we are watching. And we don't know the day or hour, neither do the angels in heaven. Nobody knows, but we've been given a time frame to look and have an expectation and to be watching. And the reason we have the sunrise new day at the start of the new year and not the spring equinox, which a lot of different cultures have the birth of the sun starting at the spring equinox. But from a biblical perspective, the new year would follow the pattern of the sunrise new day, because Scripture gives us the analogy of the term week being used as a collection of 7 years, just like the term week can also refer to a collection of 7 days. So you have the day-year equivalency. And so in order to understand when the new day starts, we have to understand when the new year starts. And so this is why we have the new day starting when the new year starts, because it's following the year pattern, which is tied to the moon sightings, the first of the month. But the spring equinox is also very important, but that's all we can say about it. It's very important and very symbolic, but the new year start would be even more so important from a biblical perspective, following the day-year pattern. And so this is why the night watches are listed according to the year. But we see in just a few hours the spring equinox will be in line with the Sphinx. And this happens right at the spring equinox. Again, very, very important. The Sphinx has been there in Egypt for a long time, and there's a lot of really compelling evidence that it's been there since before even the flood, just like some of the major pyramids too as well. And so when we see a celestial alignment, knowing that the signs in the heavens are given for a reason, and the fact that it lines up with significant icons here on Earth that have lost their meaning over the centuries and thousands of years. We're not quite sure what it means today, but we do know it's very old in antiquity and has great meaning and was built there for a reason. And there's a lot of good compelling reason that it was built before the flood for the purpose of preserving celestial knowledge. And some have even made a good argument that Enoch was involved in building the pyramids. But it's hard to say, so we can't state definitively, but there's very strong evidence that at least they were from before the flood. So we take this knowledge into consideration when we consider primarily the Shiloh prophecy. These icons, these very powerful symbols of Egypt, where the Shiloh prophecy was made, were very well known. And because the understanding of the heavens was greater in time past, particularly at the time of Job and Abraham, and they knew more about what the heavens were declaring, they would be more aware of the significance celestially tie-in with the signs in the heavens and with the Sphinx, with the lion, and even the pyramids even. And so we take what evidence we do know, and we know there is a connection very strongly, and especially since the Shiloh prophecy was made here in Egypt. There's a lot that we know these are connected, but we can't state anything definitively. So let me just state that again. We don't know if anything will happen by the equinox or on the equinox, but we do know it's very symbolic, has very important meaning. It does remind us of some important themes that we have studied. These are massive structures here. They are very old. They've survived a long time. And to see how they were built to line up celestially with the sun, primarily at the spring equinox, and even the overt symbolism of the lion and everything, there's a lot that we have to consider that we can't dismiss. And so we know the celestial heavens lining up with this is important. And we've talked about before, you have the three main pyramids, and the Sphinx is right up there, a little off center of that pyramid, but it's right up there. And we've talked about how the three pyramids line up with Orion's belt. And while there's more debate about how the rest of the body of Orion might apply to the surrounding area, it's of little debate that the belt of Orion does appear to match the pyramids, at least for the belt part. Because we know the Egyptians had a strong interest in astronomical things. Whoever built the pyramid displayed interest in astronomical things with other building aspects unique to the pyramids, and even how they lined up with the sun too. So we know whoever built the pyramids was strongly interested in astronomical things. We also know from history that the Egyptians also referred and likened the pyramids to stars as well. And so we know there is a connection between the pyramids and Orion's belt. Beyond that, it's harder to say, but we know at least for sure there's a strong connection of Orion's belt to the pyramids. And so the fact that the pyramids very strongly appear to be from before the flood, and the Sphinx as well, to see the Bible give repeated emphasis toward Orion and Pleiades and the other ones, but particularly Orion, at a time of Job and Abraham not too long after the flood, we know that there was some type of connection between Orion and the pyramids that they would have been familiar with. Again, we can't state anything definitive or concrete, but we do know that there is a lineup, there is meaning that was apparent even to them back then at the time of Abraham and Job. And to see how it lined up with Orion, and our attention brought to Orion by God himself, and then to see the sun lining up with the Sphinx on the spring equinox, all this catches our attention. We know there's a lot more we don't know, but we do know what we do see is very important. This time of the celestial heavens clockwork lining up with something that appears to be from before the flood. There is importance toward this time. And so again, when we look on the timeline, it catches our attention. It's at the spring equinox, which is in a few hours, and it's also in the last part of the fourth watch this year, how it falls out, which is going to be the start of the new year. And then it should also catch our attention that Jupiter opposition is shortly after that too as well. There's three significant things at this time that are catching our attention. And the timing of it all, but primarily the symbolism of what is taking place there in Egypt at these symbols of the lion and the belt of Orion. What is happening there in cue with the celestial heavens, right at this time in the fourth watch, where we are on our learning journey, as we've been watching what's been going on in the celestial heavens. And going back a couple weeks toward how we saw Jupiter at station 1 when it lined up over Bethlehem in the story then. And now we find another place where we are in our learning journey, and we see celestial events primarily with the sun now lining up and bringing attention to Egypt. We saw our attention drawn to the story at Bethlehem, and now we see our attention being brought to Egypt. And this should catch our attention because these stories are linked. Matthew 2:9. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, and frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. We've been looking at the wise men's journey, and where we left off with them was when Jupiter was standing over Bethlehem, drawing attention toward Bethlehem and confirming that the Lord had brought them on the path right to their doorstep. And that's why they were so excited to see that unique celestial event right on the very day and hour when they were coming to Bethlehem. But the story doesn't end there, and this is what needs to catch our attention. Verse 12, they were warned of God to return to their own country another way. But verse 13, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared. It immediately transitions into that connected toward the wise men. The wise men had just left, and now Joseph and the young child were going to leave too. This departure and this going toward Egypt picks up on the wise men's journey. These are woven together. This is a continuous story. The wise men no doubt had told Joseph about how they had talked with Herod and had gotten to run around and finally figured out to go to Bethlehem. So you can imagine Joseph's reaction when the angel of the Lord says that Herod is going to seek the young child to destroy him. Joseph knew that Herod knew where he was, in Bethlehem. So that's why he got up in the middle of the night and left right away. He wanted to put as many miles between him and Herod as he could before Herod found out. These two stories are intimately connected. And so even though the wise men are now heading off toward their own country, the story still continues, and it is now bringing attention toward Egypt. The star before brought attention toward Bethlehem, and now the story continues, bringing attention to Egypt. And particularly, this is a fulfillment of prophecy related to the coming Messiah, Shiloh. Not only would he be born in Bethlehem, but he would also be called out of Egypt. Both are true. It's part of this story.